Welcome to the Rise Up in Business podcast. I'm Tracy Myler-Crane and I'm your host. I'm a business lawyer, an entrepreneur, a wife and a mum to two wonderful little people. This podcast is designed to be the business and law podcast for small business owners. Each episode explores different business and legal concepts in a clear and easy to understand way, all delivered in bite-sized chunks that are easy to listen to. You're sure to be able to take little nuggets of gold from each episode and implement them into your business straight away. I'm bringing you these podcast episodes each week with my intention being to share with you what you need to know to feel empowered so you can rise up and take control in your business. Let's get into today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Rise Up in Business podcast. I am bringing this episode to you today to wrap up season 5 of the podcast before we dive into season 6. Can I just take a moment to say thank you to each and every one of you for taking the time out of what I know is a busy schedule to listen and tune in to this podcast and really engage with me the way that you do, just by taking away the value that I share with my amazing guests and by taking the time to reach out to me personally or leave reviews on Apple Podcast. It really means the world to me that you do take the time to listen to the podcast and that you keep coming back because of the value that I'm sharing. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you, so thank you. This season of the podcast, as you know, has been focused on the theme you're running a small business, now what? And it's really been directed at those business owners that reach around that 3-year mark. And that's when you pause. It's almost like you come up for breath and you say, okay, I've been doing this for this long now. Now what do I do? And I almost feel like it's very much getting to a point where you've jumped in boots and all to a business and you've been running it to give it a go to see whether it was going to take off. It of course has, it is working, it is successful, and now is the time where you can pause and think, all right, well, now what do I do? Is now the time I reach out and work with a lawyer? Is now the time I talk to my business lawyer, i.e. Tracy, about getting my legals done? What do I need for protection? Am I protected? Is my business structure right? All of those things, because you know that this is something worth investing in. So you're pausing and you're asking those questions. In this season of the podcast, I have brought you the really important, pivotal, key guests and key topics that I think add the most value to somebody at around that 3 or so year mark where you're taking that pause and you're reevaluating. One business coach, Christy Robinson, who I had on earlier in the season, refers to this period as the messy middle. And I really liked that. And she's right. It can be the messy middle for so many. It is that time to pause and take stock. And the reason I say that is both my own personal experience running a business, but also from the significant number of business owners that I act for. And I see the same thing over and over again. So I'm drawn from that experience just to try and share as much value as I can so that you get the benefit of that whilst you're going through your business journey. In episode 52, I did a deep dive into sharing my story with you, and I shared how I've built a multi-6-figure business in 2 years. And I shared in there lots of details about what I did and what hasn't worked and how I got here. I know from the feedback I've received that many of you really enjoyed that. So thank you for listening to that. And I'm glad that you enjoyed hearing about my journey. I've talked a lot recently about mistakes business owners make because I don't think that mistakes are a waste. I don't see them as a negative. I see mistakes as an opportunity to learn. We all make them. Let's just embrace the mistakes. It's going to happen. Learn from them, grow, move on. And I talked about that in one of the earlier episodes this season, but just recently in episode 66, I actually talked about the biggest mistake I see business owners make. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, you might want to jump over and take a listen to episode 66 because there's some little nuggets of gold in that one too. The first thing that people want to talk to me about usually when they reach this period in their business is growth. So they've gotten to this period of the 3-year mark or thereabouts, and the question is, now what? I'm looking forward and I want to grow. So that can look different for everybody. And so in this season of the podcast, we have talked about the value of niching. What does that look like? Jess Osborne was my guest earlier on, and we talked about niching and how to do it and what it means and what it doesn't mean, but how it really can be pivotal to growth. And there's a lot of discussion around outsourcing too when you reach this point. So that might be a bookkeeper, it might be a VA. Those topics are covered in earlier episodes in this season. So if this is resonating with you, feel free to jump over and dive into those episodes. And then, of course, there's the accountant. And I laugh when I say that because I think lawyers and accountants have almost a love-hate relationship. And it can be really hard to find the right one. But by golly, when you do, you want to hold on to them, don't you? That's how I feel about my accountant. And I spoke with Andrea, my accountant, in a recent episode. And I really wanted to bring her on to share her with you because I know from the clients that I act for and from my own experience that finding a good accountant that you want to hold on to can be a bit tricky, much like a lawyer, really. And Andrea is one worth checking out. So if you haven't listened to that, please do. Taking some time to review your processes and systems can be really important as well at about this time when you're taking that pause in business. And I did an episode on that topic with Christy Robinson, who's a business coach and consultant. And that was a pretty fab episode, actually, that I would highly recommend you listen to if you're after some tips and tricks on where to start to review those processes and systems. And another pain point that I see often in my business communities amongst my colleagues and business besties and also with my clients is the topic of email marketing. And that's a really challenging one. I think all things digital marketing can be challenging and there's so many different elements to it. But email marketing is something that comes up a lot. And I really wanted to hone in on that. And I did that in an episode with Sam Waterworth earlier on. And so if email marketing is something that you're thinking about or something that you think you need to understand a little more on or get some assistance with, then that episode I know will be really, really helpful. Two really big takeaways for me this season was the episode I did with Dr. Christy Goodwin. Christy joined me in episode 61 and we talked all things digital overwhelm. Now, I've gone on a lot about this episode afterwards, so in my fortnightly email to my list and in my socials on Instagram, because this episode it really has changed my life. It really, really has. And I don't say that lightly, and I'm not just giving lip service. But Christy shared so much detail and value in this episode for business owners to really give us some context around digital overwhelm, what it is, why it's happening, why it's not our fault, and what we can do to move through it. And I've adopted many of her tips. Some of them took me a few goes, but I got there. And it really, I genuinely say it has changed my life. The biggest thing was that I took emails off my phone. So my Outlook app, I took it off my phone and I only put it on if I'm going interstate. That has been a game changer, believe it or not. And I've put some boundaries around my digital habits. That just sounds a little light on, doesn't it, when you say it like that? But it's challenging and it was hard and I did it and I committed. I'm sleeping better. I'm feeling better. I'm more focused. All the things. Multitasking was something I was trying to do so often. Christy dives in and shares with us why multitasking doesn't work, why we shouldn't do it, give it up. And I did. It feels so good. Oh, I really highly recommend that one if you haven't listened, because I've listened to it more than once, let me tell you. I did the interview with Christy, but I've listened to it more than once. And I know so many of you have. So if you haven't listened to it, please do yourself a favor and dive over to episode 61 with Dr. Christy Goodwin. You will not regret that. And another of my all-time favourite episodes from this season that I really want to shine a light on was episode 63, and that was with Ruby Lee as my guest. And we talked about whether spirituality has a place in business. I am very woo-woo, very spiritual. Anybody that knows me will know that that's the case. And I really wanted to share this conversation with Ruby in this podcast because I know that so many of you are thinking along the lines of what I was when I was getting ready to embrace, I suppose, the practice of spirituality more and really dive into rituals and practices like journaling in business. And so people have asked me along my journey, gosh, does that really have a place in business? Isn't that a personal thing? But no, it's not just a personal thing. And oh my gosh, yes, it does have a place in business. And Ruby shares her journey and we dive in and I ask some of the tough questions around journaling and what is it and how does it work? I have established a journaling practice or a ritual of journaling over the last probably 18 months, and it really is a game changer. I can't say it any more plainly than that. So if you've been thinking about some of these things and you're just not quite sure, you haven't taken the plunge yet, or even if you have, this episode is going to be one that you will enjoy and you will be able to take some actionable steps away, I think, which I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with. So that was episode 63 with Ruby Lee. Another one that you just won't regret spending some time to listen to that. That's really my recap on season 5 of the podcast. I've been so proud to bring this to you, and I have loved preparing every single one of these episodes and having these interviews with these amazing guests that have come along to share their insights and their value with you. And I just know that there's something in there for so many of you, and I'm just so delighted to be able to share that with you along your journey. My business, as you know, is all about empowering business owners to rise up and take control in their business. And my business is about enriching lives. And this podcast is just one of the ways that I do that. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and I'm so grateful to be able to deliver it. I am in the throes of preparing season 6 for you, and it is going to be good. Season 6 is all about your questions answered. So in season 6, I am diving in and I am sharing with you the advice I give and the guidance I give to clients all the time. There's just so many topics that clients come to me, and there's so many questions that they ask, the same questions, we explore the same topics. And because it gets asked so often, I know how important it is. I know how common it is. And I'm going to be diving in season 6 to share that with you. So in season 6, it's all about your questions answered. And I'm also going to be having some of my clients come along and do episodes with me to share with you what it's like working with me and some of the things that we work on together and how they have found the experience. Because I know what it can be like when you're thinking about, do I really want to engage a lawyer? Do I need to? How do I find the right one? Hear from some of my clients firsthand what it is that we're doing and how they find it. So on that note, if there is something in particular you would like to have me address, a question you'd really like me to dive into in season 6, please reach out and let me know. So you can reach out on email. You can reach out in my DMs on Instagram. We're at TM Solicitor. We can jump over to the website and just send through a message. The website is tmsolicitor.com.au. My email, of course, is Tracy with an E at tmsolicitor.com.au. So I would love to hear from you, anything at all. If there's something burning in your mind or something you would just really love to hear me talk about solo or with a guest in season 6, please do let me know. Don't miss the opportunity. I am in the throes of preparing. We've already started recording. It will be with you soon, and I really can't wait to bring this one. Thanks so much for listening. As always, can't wait to be back in your ears next week. That's it for today's episode. Thank you for joining me. I very much appreciate you taking the time to listen. If you liked the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. And if you found this episode to be of value for you in your business, I would be ever so grateful if you would take a moment to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, because that will help this podcast reach the ears of more business owners. If you haven't already, don't forget to jump over to my website and download your free copy of my annual legal checklist designed specifically for small business owners. And if you're ready to set your business up so you can get paid every time hassle-free, check out my course, Getting Paid Made Easy. You can access these resources on my website at tmsolicitor.com.au. Remember, in business, prevention is better than cure. I'll be back with another episode for you next week. Until then, take care.